This is CBC Here and Now.
And I opened the window and he said, get out now while you can.
They faced Fiona from inside a building as it collapsed. Tonight, they're telling their story of escaping a destroyed Airbnb.
The World Masters Powerlifting Championships are in St. John's this week. So in 5 years, you became a world champion. How does that feel?
Wonderful. I was crying and everything. I felt so proud.
We're going to tell you all about it coming up.
Good evening and welcome to Here and Now. Those stories just ahead, but first, substitute teachers say a new system for booking them is creating problems in the classroom. The system is an automated one, but the education minister says it's more fair and working well. Here and Now's Peter Cowan is looking into the concerns and he joins us live. So Peter, what's changed?
Well, Carolyn, it used to be that when a teacher called in sick, principals or vice principals would have a list. They'd pick up the phone and they'd call people until they could find a substitute teacher. Now that process is automated. The school says there's a vacancy and then the computer system books someone based on their qualifications. The education minister says it's really designed to fix two problems.
Junior substitutes now have an equal chance of getting hours and substitute days because of the way SmartFind works. And the administrators, the vice principals, who spend often several hours on the phone trying to find substitutes, have that time now free to devote to the classroom.
Now, I've heard from more than a dozen substitute teachers and even school administrators who say this has led to less predictability for teachers and more turnover in the classroom, with one classroom having 3, 4, or maybe even 5 different teachers all fill in 1 week. One teacher used to always get called at the same school, for example, so she says she knew the kids and the staff. It was easy for her to fill in. Now she's getting bounced around to all sorts of other schools. And administrators aren't allowed to override the automatic system. A memo sent to them, obtained by CBC News, warns administrators they'd be audited to make sure they were using the new system. The union representing teachers says what's being lost is consistency.
Just having some consistent faces who know the lay of the land, know the building, have built relationships with a lot of these children. If you've got consistent subs in these buildings, they know their backgrounds, they know their files many times. So sometimes substitute teachers, their value may be underestimated, and because they do bring consistency to a lot of buildings.
Now, they're already tweaking the system. For example, teachers who have part-time jobs weren't getting first dibs on substitute teaching opportunities to top them up, something that happened before. The minister says they fixed that. The school board said in a statement, at this time, the district is working on identifying what and where enhancements can be made to the SmartFind system, and we're not in a position to provide an interview. Now, we should point out not everyone has problems. Some administrators say it has saved them time. Some teachers say it's working for them to find them work. But others have said all the hassles and headaches are making them reconsider working as a substitute teacher at a time where there's already a shortage. Reporting live in the newsroom, I'm Peter Cowan for Here and Now.
A Texas couple who faced down Fiona escaped with their lives last month despite being inside a building as it collapsed. Here and Now's Malone Mullen tracked them down.
When Fiona blasted Port aux Basques, everybody felt it. The wind, the waves, the driving rain. In their Airbnb by the ocean, Brenda and Tim Holland woke up to the sound of shouting.
Not too long after we woke up, we heard people shouting outside, and I opened the window and he said, get out now while you can. And we're like, well, we don't have anywhere to go. And he's like, well, you can see in my house.
The two were visiting Newfoundland, trying to hunker down to weather the storm and get on the next ferry home. As the wind howled Saturday morning, the couple packed their things, oblivious to what was about to hit them.
And we were thinking, like, we're on the second floor, so if it's going to flood, right? Well, then, all of a sudden the building collapsed, and we didn't really understand what happened.
The building lurched forward, its entire bottom floor ripped out from underneath it. The second floor slid inland by about 20 meters, eventually settling across the road. It was ground zero among the hardest hit areas of Port aux Basques.
It was just kind of like, being in a car that put the brakes on a little bit fast, but not like slamming them on.
A team of volunteer firefighters met the couple at the door, helping them down and guiding them to safety. What started as a week-long holiday in Newfoundland stretched into another amid wreckage left behind by Fiona. For the next few days, locals brought the Hollands food, clothing, toiletries, even loaning them a car. They in turn helped clear debris, making friends along the way. The couple has seen big storms in Texas, but nothing like Fiona, a storm so fierce it changed them.
I'm still digesting it. I feel like it has really changed my perspective on so many things, like what's important and what's not important. I really feel kind of a renewed sense that people are good, that the majority of mankind are good people. At least in Newfoundland.
The Hollands arrived as tourists from Texas. They left as part of a family forged by Fiona. Malone Mullen, CBC News, St. John's.
And in the weather today and tonight, it is going to be a calm 24 hours. We really don't have much on the way in respect to the weather. It is going to be cloudy tonight, increasing cloud across the island with some fog after midnight. All that will clear off on Friday, and that's going to leave behind a really warm, sunny Friday as you kick off your weekend. We'll tell you all about it a little later in the show.
A group of Ukrainians in this province and their supporters are rallying at Confederation Building this evening. Some came straight from their hotel, having just arrived in St. John's earlier this week. They're calling on the West to help protect Ukrainian airspace in the wake of the ongoing Russian missile strikes. To symbolize protection over Ukraine, people were asked to bring along an umbrella.
We'll open up the umbrellas as a metaphor for kind of closing up the skies in Ukraine and protecting them.
The situation in Ukraine kind of comes in and out of focus in our news cycle. And so, following this recent wave of attacks, ongoing attacks that started on Monday and continue till today, it's just good to keep this in the public eye.
Dozens of people have gathered at the Confederation Building tonight to show their solidarity for Ukraine. Ahead of this evening's rally, I spoke with two of the organizers. We'll have more of our conversation coming up in about 25 minutes on Here and Now. Meanwhile, a Russian-installed governor in Ukraine is asking Moscow's help in moving people from the Kherson region. Vladimir Saldo says Ukrainian missiles are hitting civilian areas in Kherson, and he says he wants Moscow to transport people to other parts of Russia for what he calls leisure and study. Moscow held a sham referendum in Kherson last month, declaring Kherson part of Russia. But Ukrainian forces continue to push Russian forces out of the region, liberating a town recently after months of fighting. In other news, 3 health authorities in the province say the ongoing review of mammography images is nearly done. Eastern Health, Labrador Grenfell, and Western Health say that as of Monday, 38 patients require further assessment. Nearly 11,000 people had their breast screening results reviewed after it was learned that screenings were read using substandard monitors. People whose report did not change should expect to receive a second letter, and patients whose images showed possible discrepancies are being contacted, as are their primary healthcare providers. The provincial government released details today on its plan to make it easier to recruit qualified doctors and getting them working. It said earlier this week it was introducing legislation to change the Medical Act to remove what they call needless red tape, and today outlined how that might look. Here now's Mark Quinn reports.
Premier Andrew Furey says unnecessary barriers are keeping good doctors out of Newfoundland and Labrador.
A friend of mine's a family doc in London. just outside London. Worked with her all over the world. She'd love to come here, but has no interest in writing the LMCC Part 1 and Part 2. Like that's, or an English proficiency test. Like it's just not happening. So eliminating some of those will help attract, I think, people to come short term and hopefully forever.
The Honourable Minister of Health and Community Services.
The proposed changes would give the health minister new powers to determine qualifications, jurisdictions, and schools that would qualify a doctor to be considered for a provisional license. But the College of Physicians and Surgeons would still ultimately decide who is licensed to practice here.
The college still is responsible for licensure in the province. The physician would still pay the fees to the college.
It would mean physicians who don't meet the current requirements for registration, but who do have needed skills, could begin working in this province until those requirements are met.
We are doing what we can to try to address the shortage of physicians in the province. If we find that this is working well, we keep it in place until we get beyond the fact that we have a shortage, and then we put it fully back to the college.
The opposition supports the changes in principle, but wants more details.
I think it's good. My first response is, what took you so long?
Din's concerned that the provincial association that represents doctors in this province wasn't consulted and only learned about the proposed changes today.
Someone's dropped the ball there. Because whether you agree or disagree with, say, the medical association's point of view, it's a point of view that you need to hear.
The proposed changes, if adopted, will make it easier for physicians to prescribe electronically. It will also give the college's registrar the authority to suspend or restrict a doctor's license until a complaint against that physician is resolved. Mark Quinn, CBC News, St. John's.
Well, to Ottawa now, where the first day has wrapped up at the inquiry into the federal government's use of the Emergencies Act this past February, an inquiry that will eventually feature testimony from federal ministers, including the Prime Minister himself. They'll be among the dozens of witnesses appearing over 30 scheduled days of testimony and arguments, and a search for answers in one of the most contentious standoffs in recent Canadian history. You'll recall that the Emergencies Act was invoked when a trucker protest brought the area around Parliament Hill to a standstill last winter. The lead commissioner laid out what Canadians can expect and what he expects from those participating in the hearings.
This commission is about to begin the process of finding answers to the questions assigned to it by Parliament. What led the federal government to declare an emergency? How did it exercise the powers that it obtained? And were its actions appropriate? This is not a trial, it's an inquiry, and I expect everyone will work cooperatively to ensure that the facts and information necessary for the public to understand what happened and why it happened will be elicited. I appreciate the spirit of cooperation that the parties and their counsel have demonstrated thus far, and I expect it to continue.
The commissioner says he wants to provide transparency and hear all of the facts. Some of the world's strongest people are in St. John's for the World Masters Powerlifting Championships, and they're all over 40. Athletes from around the globe have been squatting, benching, and deadlifting thousands of kilos this week. And while the competition is worldwide, a few locals found themselves on top of the podium. Here now's Jeremy Eaton has that story.
It's a mix of strength, skill, and a whole lot of training. They've come from 37 different countries: Finland, Brazil, Japan, and Ireland, just to name a few.
Oh, lovely!
Many with one goal: to stand on top of this podium, like St. John's' Ruby Koryatarov, who at 74 years old is new to the sport.
First competition in September 2017, and I've had maybe 3 provincials, 1 Easterns, 2 nationals, won Commonwealth, and now Worlds.
What started out as a plan to shed a few pounds quickly turned her into a Masters world champion.
My squat was the PR 82.5 kilograms. My bench was 52.5, and my dead was 115. Now that's kilograms. Of all the medals that I won on Saturday, the best part was standing up on the stage by myself in the gold medal position and singing the Canadian national anthem. I was crying and everything, and not everybody was standing. I felt so proud.
She's got something special, and she didn't just talk a good game, she showed up and put in the work. I don't think she ever missed a workout. I don't think she ever said, I'm tired or I don't want to train today, and she's got the mentality and work ethic of a world champion.
The hotel is playing host to some of the strongest folks on the planet, about 450 of them. About 200 coaches are here as well, plus the entourage.
They love it here. They love the city. People go for walks and things like that, and just can't believe how beautiful it is here.
Local powerlifter Jeff Budd is not only one of the event organizers, he's also a competitor.
I had a goal when I started this 30 years ago to win a world championships, and this was the one where I did it this first time.
And how does that feel, man?
Amazing. My daughter was here watching, and she was able to present me with the medal, and of course I broke down and cried like a baby.
First weight on the bar is 120 kilos of Bill.
To pull off an event like this requires lots of volunteers, like England's Joe Whiteley, who travels the world lifting the mic more than weights.
Have you seen how much fun this is? This is great. You know, to be part of this sport and to be involved in the action is just something else. You know, the hair stands up on my arms when people get lifts, that, you know, world records and that kind of thing. So it's just for the love of it. It really is. I use up all my vacation days doing this, and I wouldn't change it for the world.
Judges and referees have also come from all over as well. And even the boss thinks St. John's has pulled off a great event.
The event is very well organized and the people are all happy, and I say every time when our lifters are happy, then I'm happy as well.
And if people think that it's too late to start, she'll tell you otherwise.
Just get introduced to it and you'll be able to do it. You'll be able to do it like me. I didn't think I would, but here I am, and I love every minute of it.
This event wraps up on the weekend. Jeremy Eaton, CBC News, St. John's.
And we've also got a pretty powerful forecast going into the weekend for your Friday afternoon. We'll tell you a little bit more about that and how much warmer than average these temperatures are going to be.
300,000 visitors have arrived in St. John's on cruise ships over the last 22 years. A ceremony today to welcome the latest ship. Well, it is peak season to view fall colors on the west coast of the island. Corner brooks, maples, and other deciduous trees look like they are on fire this time of year. The red, yellow, and orange leaves are blanketing the skyline and hovering over city streets.
People, of course, have been taking advantage of the warm temperatures as well for walks amongst the fall foliage. And it won't be long before the leaves are on the ground. So it's a great time now to grab your cameras and get out and enjoy.
We're gonna have some pretty nice weather to do just that, it sounds like.
Lots of weather to enjoy.
Yeah, tomorrow sounds like it's going to be stunning.
For a Friday afternoon as well.
Perfect.
Great timing.
Yeah.
Great timing, Mother Nature. Let's take a look at the temperatures today. Again, another great day. 16 degrees here in St. John's, 13, 14 along the coast. But as we move into Terra Nova and to Central and the West Coast, 18, 17 degrees. Absolutely stunning day. Things a little cooler, though, in Labrador and on the Northern Peninsula. Getting into the single-digit temperatures, though. 11 today in Labrador City. So you had a pretty good day. A few showers there, though. But, we really can't complain with this kind of forecast. Let's take a look at the 24-hour temperature change because there's a bit of a story there. Temperatures, 5, 6 degrees difference from this time yesterday. So a really warm day in many parts of the island, especially into Central here today. Another warm day in store for tomorrow. Let's take a look at the future tracker, though, to see how things are looking for tonight. We've got a lot of cloud here on the west part of the island. Clear skies into the east, and what's going to happen overnight is that this cloud is going to push on through the island until about midnight. After midnight, we're going to have some fog patches develop, increasing cloud in the overnight, possible showers here down on the south coast, and we could have some showers maybe around the Happy Valley Goose Bay area. And as we move into the early morning hours, by the time you get up, it looks like some of this cloud and some of that fog will start to burn off. We'll look at that a little bit later in our weather forecast. But first, let's get to tonight and how things are shaping up for tonight. So really from Gander and east, your forecast is all the same. We're going to have that increasing cloud that we just saw on the future tracker push through to this part of the island. We could have some fog. It will be 6 degrees, but if you're on the coast, it could be a little bit warmer. It could be 10 degrees. When we're getting down to Grand Falls, Windsor here, we're going to have that increasing cloud and some fog possible as well, but it will be 3 degrees and we'll have 3 degrees right into the west coast, into Corner Brook as well. Down in Port aux Basques, though, it will be warmer. It will be 10, that 10 degrees along the coast that we talked about, and we'll have some cloudy skies. We could have some wind here tonight, 20 gusting to 40 out of the east on up into the northern peninsula. Some cloud for you guys tonight and a low of 5 degrees. Low of 5 in Happy Valley Goose Bay as well tonight, where you could have a 40% chance of showers. Meanwhile, in Labrador City, the showers that you saw today, those will end tonight, and then things will clear off for you. It'll be a nice night along the coast in Nain, 3 degrees and 1 in Cartwright. Taking a look at our future tracker again for when we are in the overnight hours on into the early morning. You can see the cloud and the fog start to burn off as we get into the 9 o'clock hour as many people are headed to work. And then it continues to burn off by lunchtime and then right on through to your Friday evening, 6 o'clock, supper time tomorrow. It's still going to be pretty nice. The sun will be starting to set, but you'll have a nice evening. We could have some showers along the southwest coast, but pretty clear for many parts of Labrador as well. Some cloudy skies there too, but again, look, a lovely Friday evening for this time of year with temperatures that are way above seasonal. Let's take a look at tomorrow. So it's going to be 17 degrees for the eastern half of the island. Mainly sunny in St. John's, but a mix of sun and cloud elsewhere after all of that cloud burns off. So this 17 degrees, normally it's 10, 11 degrees this time of year. So we're a full, 6 degrees higher than our normal average for this time of year. So quite a warm day for us here on the East Coast tomorrow. Getting into central Newfoundland, 17 in Gander and Terra Nova, 18 in Grand Falls, Windsor. On the coasts, on the north coast and the south coast, you're going to be at 13 degrees, a little bit cooler for you both. Moving on west now, those 18-degree temperatures are going to persist now in through the Humber Valley and the West Coast, even parts of the Northern Peninsula up in Gros Morne, but it's right here down along the coast. In Burgeo, you could have a 40% chance of showers or drizzle tomorrow, 15 degrees. You see a little bit more cloud down here, and you will have that drizzle in the afternoon in Port aux Basques. It will be windy, 30, gusting to 50 winds out of the east. On up to the Northern Peninsula, a nice day for you as well. Mix of sun and cloud, 14 degrees. Few showers, though, possible as we get into Mary's Harbor, clearing off up in Cartwright, though. On the coast in Nain, it will be 5 degrees, warming up as we get down to Makovic, 16 in Churchill Falls, and 13 in Labrador City tomorrow. You'll have a little bit of wind to contend with, southeast, 20 gusting to 40. Not a bad forecast at all. Even looking at the winds, there's really not much to write home about at all. Very light winds. So a nice, calm and quiet 24 hours. We'll take a look how things are shaping up going into the weekend and into Monday, dare I say it, this part of the week, Monday. We're thinking about the weekend. Let's look at the weekend in the long-term forecast a little later in the show.
Oh, thanks, Heather. Well, what a way to see a sunrise sailing through the Narrows of St. John's Harbor. That was the backdrop for nearly 3,000 passengers aboard the Sky Princess this morning. And as the cruise ship came into the harbor, the St. John's Port Authority marked a significant milestone, meeting the 300,000th visitor.
This year we had 26 cruise ship visits, about 22,000 passengers aboard. This one, the Sky Princess, is the largest of the ships in this year, with 2,900 passengers aboard. Today we also mark the 300,000th passenger to come to St. John since 1999 aboard a cruise ship.
Beautiful. We were notified last night at dinner time. Zoe, the director of guest services, came down and notified us of that. I thought that was quite remarkable. It's a first for us that we've ever been honored like that. We are from Virginia, and yes, we are retired. I'm prior military and civilian contractor, so now retired. And we've been on the ship since March of this year.
We let the aggressors from Russia claim victory, whether in actuality or in their false words. It jeopardizes our own way of life here in Newfoundland and Labrador.
We'll return to the Confederation Building in St. John's, where tonight Ukrainians in this province are pushing to better protect those left behind. That's just ahead. Well, dozens of people are rallying outside Confederation Building in St. John's this evening, prompted by this week's brutal Russian missile strikes. A group of Ukrainians and their supporters are calling on Western countries to help protect the skies above Ukraine. This afternoon, I met up with two of the organizers to learn more about tonight's rally.
You know about all of the recent bombings in Ukraine from Russia, and that really led a number of newcomers and people still in Ukraine on a Telegram group that I'm in to kind of look for a way to show their support and to show their solidarity and to condemn Russia's actions. And so that was really the impetus behind the Umbrellas Open for Ukraine rally.
The situation in Ukraine kind of comes in and out of focus in our news cycle, and so, I mean, following this recent wave of attacks, ongoing attacks that started on Monday and continue till today, it's just good to keep this in the public eye, partly to send a continued message to our different levels of government that we want them to continue their support for Ukraine, and also just to show that people of Newfoundland and Labrador are concerned and want to show their support.
And can you also talk about the umbrella and the use of the umbrella at the rally? What message is that sending?
We'll open up the umbrellas as a metaphor for kind of closing up the skies in Ukraine and protecting them. Obviously, not everybody has an umbrella since this is Newfoundland and that would last about 2 days. So we are bringing a few for people as well.
We're actually part of a series of similar events that have been taking place right across North America. So Ukrainian communities throughout Canada and the U.S. have been holding rallies like this. And the idea of the umbrella is just to show the idea of sheltering the skies of Ukraine. And recently, NATO countries have agreed to provide more air defense systems to Ukraine, which will help them to stop the catastrophe that was happening from all these rocket attacks. And even with the help that Ukraine's received up to the present, they've been able to repel a lot of those rockets. So they're aimed at civilian infrastructure, things like schools and hospitals, playgrounds, electrical systems. And so with more aid from the West, there's a better chance to protect civilians in this terrible war.
And so, Bruce, you've been speaking with folks in the Ukrainian community. What have you been hearing from them about this escalation of attacks?
Oh, well, they're distraught, They're going to different countries. They're wondering if they're going to be able to come home. They're wondering what's awaiting them when they get to these new places. They are also really moved by the shows of support. I see messages and I hear people telling me when they see Ukrainian flags up, that means a lot, and that was actually touching to hear.
People are worried about their families that are still left behind in Ukraine. I know, we've been in contact with our own family, and after Monday's attack, they were without power and water for most of the day Monday. It was restored and then knocked out again. And people are just worried about, what kind of devastation is going to take place, rather than the falsehoods which are, announced by Moscow, where they say we're targeting military facilities. But the reality is what they're targeting is civilians, infrastructure, hoping to keep the people of Ukraine afraid and hoping that the West would be afraid as well. So having rallies like this help us show that we're not afraid. We'll stand up to the aggression coming from the Kremlin, and also, the people in our community saying the same kind of thing.
And there's going to be some speakers at the rally. Can you tell me a bit more about that?
Sure. We'll have a few speakers from various levels of government, and we're really appreciative of the various supports that we've received from the city, from the provincial government, from the federal government. Some folks from the community, some newcomers, will give their thoughts about what it was like to escape from places that were being bombed. and we'll just give some general information for people that maybe haven't been following as closely as some of us are following, so that they have an idea of what's happening on the ground in Ukraine.
What do you hope people will get from this rally?
That's a good question. I hope that it keeps Ukraine in the minds of Newfoundlanders. It shows the newcomers that we care and that we're here to help them when they arrive. Kind of a microcosm of the international community who's on their side.
It also shows, by holding rallies like this all across Canada, we show that Canadians have support for Ukraine, and also that we'll stand up to the aggressions that are coming from Moscow.
Well, we talked earlier in the program about the mammography review happening in this province. Well, we're also hearing of another problem involving mammograms happening across the country. There's been a big drop in routine mammograms due to the pandemic. Hundreds of thousands fewer, in fact. And that's led to worries that some cancers that could have been caught early were not. The CBC's Mike Crawley reports.
When Laura Greer got a mammogram last November, the radiologist ordered an immediate biopsy and told her to get a referral to a surgeon.
It was one of the most traumatic parts of it because you knew it wasn't good.
Greer had been due for that mammogram 7 months earlier, but it was delayed by COVID backlogs. Her diagnosis? Stage 4 breast cancer.
Very hard to not be angry at could it have been caught earlier if mammogram had happened when it should have happened.
New figures show that Ontario's breast screening program has performed 422,000 fewer mammograms than expected since the pandemic began. That means as many as 3,000 cases of breast cancer were missed.
So this is the same area.
Doctors are now seeing the impact.
What we're noticing is that women are presenting with bigger cancers and with their lymph nodes being involved. Here is, you see a mass.
Catching cancer at a later stage has consequences for treatment and the chances of survival.
Before that, we would have done surgery and maybe some radiation for it. Now it's surgery, radiation, and maybe chemotherapy.
This is not unique to Ontario. Routine mammograms also dropped off in other provinces, by about 1/3 in British Columbia and Alberta at the start of the pandemic. There's been a similar trend with colon and cervical cancer.
Certainly in my practice, I saw a wave of more advanced cancers that I think were linked to delays in diagnosis.
Ontario's breast screening program is now back to its normal pace.
This is a good time to make an appointment and get your mammogram in.
Laura Greer is responding to treatment.
I go to work full time, I have 2 children, I do all of those things, but you never know when that could change all of a sudden.
Mike Crawley, CBC News, Toronto.
A Florida jury has recommended life in prison with no parole for the Parkland school shooter. That's just ahead. Haley Bland is too young to drive a car, but she's not too young to race them at tracks around the Maritimes. And this year, the 14-year-old cleaned up in her rookie season, going 10-0. Colleen Jones has that story.
No license, no problem for Haley Bland. I've hooked her up with a camera at Scotia Speed World. One thing Haley learned in her rookie racing season:
I like the speed. I like to go really fast, and I like to compete against others.
no one could have predicted she would burn up the track the way she has. Matter of fact, painted on her Bandolero racing car, her nickname, Wild Child, given to her during early practice runs because, well, she was wild on the track.
So in this corner, I'd go over the curb, that's the white bit right there, and it messed up my line coming up here. And then I went too close to the wall, which is very dangerous. And then coming into that turn, I did it wrong, which made me, when I came out of turn 2, I'd go over the curb again, which would actually break my spindles. And then I'd go too close to the wall.
Once she figured out how to hold the line, she won her first race, then 9 more wins followed. I'm in the chase vehicle with Scotia Speed World's Tim Terry. We're trying to catch Haley. How good is she?
She's won 10 races this year. It's hard to gauge a beginner, but I think once she moves up, she's done well against the Outlaws in Fredericton. She's done well against the Outlaws in PEI. I think she's got it.
Okay, so
back at her home, her bedroom bookcase is full of the trophies she's won this year.
this one is my last race that I did. Another car spun out right in front of me and smashed into me.
Not your fault.
No.
And in their massive garage set up for tuning and fixing race cars, Haley's dad, Doug, is teaching her race car mechanics 101.
Each track has a different setup for it. So.
Oh, yeah.
Now, he's a good racer himself, but this year, he was Haley's pit crew boss. Now he wears number 27 on his back, which is Haley's racing number. Here at the track, he gives his daughter a push out of the pits.
Not really nervous at all anymore. We get more nervous if there's going to be any wrecks or accidents, how many repairs I'm going to have to do before the next heat. Very cool. That's the whole reason I got both my girls into racing was so her mother and I will feel more comfortable when they're driving a car on the main roads, that we'll know how they know how to handle the car.
Haley's about 2 years away from being able to legally drive on the roads. For now, she's content going around the oval. Fast. Very fast. Colleen Jones, CBC News, Enfield.
As we mentioned earlier tonight, this is day 1 of the public inquiry into the Federal Emergencies Act invoked on February 14th. It looks into the events involving the so-called Freedom Convoy that brought downtown Ottawa to a standstill for weeks. Rafi Boudjkanian has the details from the opening day.
Ottawa police moving in after 3 weeks of little action, putting an end to the blockades and protests on Parliament Hill in February, but the invoking of the act also triggered important questions.
The exceptional powers given to it by the Emergencies Act affects directly or indirectly all Canadians. How and why the powers in the act were invoked are matters of great public interest.
And on this point already, battle lines have been drawn. Provinces like Alberta pointing out authorities stopped a border crossing blockade there without extra legislation.
None of the powers that were created under the Federal Emergencies Act were necessary, nor were any of them used in Alberta to resolve the Coots blockade.
The Emergencies Act requires several things. One, it could be invoked due to espionage and sabotage. Are you going to hear any evidence about espionage and sabotage? The answer to that is no. It also could be invoked on the basis of threats or use of acts of serious violence against persons or property. Are you going to hear evidence of violence against persons or property? The answer is no.
We knew from the very beginning that invoking the Emergencies Act is a big step. It had never been done before, but given these unprecedented illegal protests, we needed to take action.
Open publicly, the commission attracted few curious onlookers today, though they did include convoy organizer Tamara Leach.
What do you think of the use of the emergency powers?
No, I'm not going to comment on that right now.
As one of 65 anticipated witnesses, Leach will have less of a choice once she takes the stand. The Prime Minister and 7 members of his cabinet are expected to testify as well, and the Commission says it will produce thousands of documents in the next 6 weeks. All this as it expects to wrap up its work next February. The Commissioner already hinting today that's a tall order for a tight timeline. Rafi Bujikani on CBC News, Ottawa.
A Florida jury has recommended life in prison with no parole for Nicholas Cruz, the gunman in the 2018 Parkland school shooting. Cruz pleaded guilty.
We, the jury, unanimously find that the aggravating factors are sufficient to warrant a possible sentence of death. Yes.
Cruz pleaded guilty to 17 counts of murder and 17 counts of attempted murder. In February of 2018, 14 students and 3 school staff members were killed at Marjorie Stoneman Douglas High School. 17 others were injured. This is a recommendation only, but Florida law makes it likely to be adopted. I'll tune into CBC Radio's Newfoundland Morning tomorrow to hear from organizers of the Social Enterprise Conference taking place in Norris Point. Bernice Hillier is co-hosting from the community. Newfoundland Morning starts at 6 a.m. is interesting. There's a new way to experience a hurricane's intensity without the danger. It's something called Beat the Storm, and it's in Denmark. The simulator allows people ages 5 to 80 to experience the force of extreme wind in a safe environment. It pits the participants against increasingly stronger winds as they navigate through a wind tunnel to press the button at the other end, and it can blow up to 130 kilometers per hour. It features sound, light, and animation special effects, so the storms can be virtually experienced in cities, mountains, forests, or deserts. The creators say the simulator aims to raise awareness about nature and science through play. That's pretty neat. I'd like to try that.
Yeah.
Or if you're like Ashley, you just go out and experience
it.
The real thing. Okay, so let's look at the long-range forecast. We're heading into the weekend. I'm sure lots of people would like to know how things are shaping up.
Saturday looks good. Maybe some rain on Sunday, but again, can't complain after the weather we've had, today into tomorrow. So let's take a look how things are shaping up. So for Friday, we see, that cloud on the western part of the island, clear on the east, like we talked about earlier, probably a few showers down here or drizzle even along the south coast of the island. And as we move on into Saturday, we see more cloud moving across the island, some showers into western Labrador possible there as well. Let's take a look here now. Beautiful day on Saturday. 17 degrees in St. John's and in Gander, 16 in Marystown. We'll have a mix of sun and cloud for the island, but look at this, 19 in Corner Brook. Looks like an absolutely beautiful fall day. I think like we talked about yesterday, if you have anything to do outside, probably your day to get things done before some rain moves in on Sunday. Let's take a look at how that could look for you. We see some of that shower activity that won't amount to a whole pile according to Environment Canada, but again, that cloud cover Saturday overnight, some showers moving on in up through the island from the south on up through. Let's take a look at the temperatures along with them. Will be a mix of sun and cloud in St. John's, so we might escape a lot of that shower activity, but the rest of the island certainly won't. It looks like we'll have rain in Marystown, along the south coast of Port aux Basques, up along the west coast in Grand Falls, Windsor, and parts of Central as well. And on up into Labrador, we could have some rain in Happy Valley, Goose Bay, and in Labrador City. Nain and Cartwright on the coast, Labrador, looks like you've got a pretty good day on Sunday in addition to Saturday. So let's take a look further afield. Friday, Saturday, Sunday for the East Coast looks lovely. You have that precipitation moving in on Monday and Tuesday with a 60% chance of showers on Tuesday. Lovely fall temperatures for you. For central Newfoundland, Friday, Saturday, looks like your nice days, and then that precipitation moving in on Sunday with a 60% chance of showers on into Monday and Tuesday. Friday, Saturday, nice on western Newfoundland with a mix of sun and cloud, 18, 19 degrees, dropping off to 16 with some rain on Sunday, few clouds on Monday, chance of showers on Tuesday. For Labrador now, Friday is your nice day. Saturday and Sunday, womp womp, there are your showers. Nice day on Monday as you go back to work. A few showers possible on Tuesday with some pretty decent temps for you as well. A little bit warmer along eastern Labrador. For Friday, mix of sun and cloud, chance of showers on Saturday. Could see the sun though. Showers on Sunday. Decent day on Monday with the chance of showers again on Tuesday. And this is our weather photo. Isn't that a lovely sunset? That comes to us from Julie Baggs. And she took this at Sandbanks Provincial Park. That's on the west coast, and it is a really nice picture. And she said, that one is a framer, and I couldn't agree more.
Absolutely.
If you have any photos, you can send them at nlphotos@cbc.ca.
What a gorgeous beach, too. Nice sandy beach. Don't have too many of those in the province. Well, that's it for us this evening. Thank you so much for joining us.
Good night.